What is guilt? Guilt is not innate, but a social feeling. In fact, this is a response to a negative assessment of the environment of our behavior. Every society has its own set of rules. What is good and what is bad? Which are instilled from early childhood through guilt. In different eras, in different cultures, in different social strata, and even in different families. This set of rules can be very different, and it is important to understand this. Once we have been instilled with a sense of guilt through a negative assessment, this feeling turns into our internal code, and we begin to take responsibility for what we have done and judge ourselves. We no longer need public opinion for this. Guilt seems to be something good and right. Right? If we feel remorse when we do things that seem wrong to him, this is a really good signal. He says that we have moral principles, and we understand that we did not do what we expected from you. Even better, if this feeling of guilt is preventive. That is, it prevents us from doing something that we consider bad. But when this feeling is not reinforced by actions, but simply lies as a ballast on the soul, is it good? Or when the feeling becomes chronic, when it affects our perception of ourselves and our self-esteem and prevents us from living? There is nothing good in this anymore, as it becomes destructive and destroys us from the inside. Similarly, when we begin to engage in self-discipline, we become less able to change this situation, and sometimes relieve ourselves of any responsibility. But if I'm bad, then I'll stay. There's nothing I can do about it anymore. Since everyone considers me bad, then less good will be expected of me. Perhaps now it caused you resentment. And if this is so, then this once again confirms that you are afraid to look into yourself. But understand that such a mentality undercuts the possibility of your happiness in the bud. Guilt does not allow you to fulfill yourself and understand how wonderful you are and how much you are capable of in this life. Try to make an effort and change the situation. Well, what then is a healthy feeling of guilt? This is just a signal. And its essence is that it should entail some kind of action in order to correct the situation and lead us to the understanding that we will no longer do this. Once this mission has been completed, we should no longer feel guilty. It's that simple. Already at this stage, you may realize that there is no point in continuing to feel guilty when you have already done everything you could. We are all human and we all have the right to make mistakes. Do not take away this right. Let go of the guilt and move on. But you can argue, but not all the same situation fits under. Yes, for example. Really? Let's look at other options. Number 1. Sometimes it's too late to do something. If something happened in the past that is no longer in our power to fix, leave it in the past. Put yourself in the place of the person to whom you would like to ask for forgiveness. And imagine how he forgives you. Indeed, that was exactly what happened. This was a person close to you, and he would definitely forgive you. Realize that you have already done everything you could. You admitted your mistake, experienced strong emotions, and made conclusions. At the moment, there is nothing more you can do. Realizing this is an important step. Number 2. Sometimes it was impossible to do otherwise. It is important to realize the fact that not everything depends on us. Therefore, taking responsibility for absolutely everything does not make sense. Determine what you could have done differently if you were in the same situation. This will be your area of personal responsibility. Don't take on the rest of the burden. Do the best you can and don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect. Understand that you are not ideal. Ideal does not exist at all. Learn the lesson and move on. Interesting fact. In many cultures, idealization is considered a vice and nothing more than pride. The more you want to be perfect, the harder it will be for each of your mistakes, the stronger your guilt will take root. Number 3. You keep doing exactly the same. You feel like you're doing something wrong, but you keep doing it anyway. You have to figure out what is the impetus for this. Do you have a choice and how to get out of this vicious circle? Understand the reasons and be honest with yourself. Change your behavior or attitude to the situation. However, understand that the feeling of guilt in this case does not fulfill its immediate mission, and therefore is completely useless. Number 4. You don't want to take any action? Sometimes pride is stronger, and we cannot bring ourselves to apologize or admit to others that we were wrong. But the guilt continues to hold us back. Ask yourself, who are you hurting? What will change from the fact that you admit that you made a mistake? Solve the issue of pride for your own good, as guilt destroys you from the inside. Feels guilty without end, and others are also to blame. We mirror ourselves in everything. What we don't like about ourselves, we tend to blame in others. When we accept ourselves with all our faults and guilt, we also accept and judge others less for theirs and reality. Identify the people who are manipulating your guilt. Sometimes you may notice that you feel guilty towards certain people, and often for different reasons. In addition, a person who feels guilty endlessly is guilty of others. We mirror ourselves in everything. What we don't like about ourselves, we tend to blame in others. When we accept ourselves with all our faults and guilt, we also accept and judge others less for theirs and reality. Identify the people who are manipulating your guilt. Sometimes you may notice that you feel guilty towards certain people, and often for different reasons. As soon as you try to resolve the situation by apologizing and decide that you will never do it again in the future, a new situation occurs in which you again find yourself at fault. If you recognize yourself, then know that you are likely to be manipulated and made to feel guilty for their own ends. Guilt is a management tool in order to subjugate a person and get some kind of resource from him. We have videos on our channel. How to recognize a manipulator who will help you understand this topic little bit more. And we hope that this feeling is constant and unnecessary guilt will leave you. Develop your emotional intelligence. When your emotional intelligence is trained, you can get out of guilt like steps. First guilt, then forgiveness, and then perhaps a little sadness at the memory. Jumping over a wall out of guilt from a swoop is almost impossible. Do everything gradually. In addition, the vast majority of cases for which we can feel guilty happen precisely when we do not control our emotions. If you learn to control yourself, control your anger, in time, recognize its origin in the form of irritability or anger, then you can avoid negative consequences. Where can you behave differently than you would like? Share with someone. Share your feelings and experiences with someone who can listen and support. It can be your friend or even a casual companion. When you put your feelings into words, it becomes easier for you to experience these emotions. It is better to understand yourself and understand that everyone is wrong. Write yourself a letter. Is there a person with whom you can share? Was not found. Or is it very difficult for you to open up to someone? Then tell this story to yourself or write a letter about yourself. Describe the situation in detail and try to be as objective as possible. You write yourself an indulgence. This is the most powerful technique that will surely help you deal with guilt. Its effectiveness has been proven by centuries of its use in the past. In its direct purpose of psychotherapy, this technique is used as follows. Just write on a piece of paper. I let go of my guilt, I forgive myself. Do this every time the guilt starts to torment you. After a while, it will certainly recede. And remember that everything is in your hands and the power of your consciousness is enormous. If you've been through this in the past and overcome guilt, share your tips in the comments. Perhaps they can help someone else. Well, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, I wish you a successful and fruitful day.